Yes. We did a lot of theory, and I believe that today will be a good opportunity to put into action what we started learning yesterday. So, just to confirm, I'd want to get some interactions before I invite Morgan to start the session. So, if you're around, kindly give me a thumbs up or react to the call, so I'll see you're here. All right, I see you, success. I see you, Kweku. Um, please let's get interactive. I want to confirm. All right, Seiram, Solomon, fantastic. Eben. Okay. Divine, I see you. Ivan, are you here?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so I think we are set. We've already done 10 minutes past our scheduled time. It's too much leeway, but then we'll go ahead and start anyways. So without much ado, I want to hand over to Morgan, our resource for the training. So Morgan, if you can hear me, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning once again. So, as I mentioned yesterday, the framework is rather tightly coupled with Django. I want to quickly survey the room. How many people have written code using Django framework before? Show with a hand up. How many have used Django, the Python framework Django? Kwaku Divine. Solomon. That's three people. Sayram, that's four. Labs has been connecting to audio for the last 10 minutes. I don't know if you can hear us. Okay. So I got four people who have specifically used Django before. But how many of us have used Python, the programming language Python, before? I don't want it to be like a blurry haze as we go through this thing. Evans, Eben, Solomon, Kweku, Sydney, Divine, PK. Okay, I think that's a large enough sample size, so a significant section of you will understand what is going on and later assist your colleagues if they need help. So let's proceed. I am putting a link in the chat for the USSD flow that I said we are developing. I am going to leave the Zoom interface. So if someone comes in afresh and they want the link, someone should please copy and repaste for them. I see that Anthony just came. You will probably not see the link.
What happened to their Zoom?
No, I am going to my, what do you call it, PyCharm. So I can't be coming back to the Zoom to come and paste the link to the draw.io
Oh,
diagram every time someone joins afresh. Okay, but quickly, let's take a quick look at the diagram so that let's take a quick look at the diagram so that we get our footing right. You remember from yesterday, I said the rectangles are nodes and the connecting lines are basically what we are going to refer to as our user response handlers. So we are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nodes. And we are going to have, let me see, probably about, since there are three of them that are terminal nodes, these remaining ones, they take an input and perform an action. So we are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 user response handlers. We are going to have 5 user response handlers. Okay, so let's get started. Stop sharing and then go and share PyCharm. Okay, so this is PyCharm. I've created a new Python project. It's an empty folder with the exception of my git ignore and then my virtual environment. So what I mentioned earlier was that this framework depends heavily on Django. So I'm going to pip install Django. Oh. Pip is going to annoy me if I don't upgrade pip. So let me just do that now. Okay. So those of you who use Django, these steps are familiar. I'm creating a new Django project. Django admin start. Is it start project? Hey, yeah. Demo. So now I have a folder called demo with this initial data in it. Okay, so let me cd into demo. And then Django admin start app app. Okay, that's what my variable and folder naming, they are terrible, so don't mind me. All right. So far we have the Django project initial files. Then we have an application, a Django app, which is where our code for the USSD will sit. This one is for configuration, and this one, the app folder, is for the application itself, and the demo folder is for the configuration. Then this thing that I'm going to do is only for this demo. After here, we are supposed to package the flat hash properly so that you use pip to install it into your project.
Okay, don't tell me
But
you're coming to copy and put into a demo project over here. Oh
I am
no.
going to copy
Oh my goodness.
and put into a demo project over here.
Hey.
Okay, there it is. So the USSD framework is in here. Now, one of the important, what do you call it? One of the important URLs in the project is this playground URL. But it's in fact, I often even override it. Ah, well, let me leave it there regardless. Okay, so what is our very first step? I am going to be dabbing from the SmartCast USSD, so I'll be looking in there every now and then. But then, first thing you need to understand is the entry point for the USSD framework is a class known as application. So inside the USSD framework um, directory, there is engine, and inside engine, there's application. This application here is the entry point for um, for using the Splathash framework, and it has a method called run. Okay, it has a method called run. So the run will take a request, and unfortunately, as of right now, this request is a Django request. That's very, very bad. It needs to be, what's the word? Decoupled from Django. But as of right now, it's a Django request. And this router is defined inside the application. Now, there are two, is it two per se? There are three implementations of application so far. There is the base application, which will um, it will take a context, or it has a context. It has a converter and a JSON converter. These are just internal to the framework. The context is what is usually exposed. Now, this base application is extended by paging aware application, and paging aware application actually adds pagination to the base application. So previously I was running this thing without pagination, and then we found that some pages were too large to fit inside one menu. So we added pagination by extending the base application. And then all of this code is just so that things can be paginated. Then finally, there is a Nalo application, which is a paging aware application. And what it does is it takes a context, and then it has a converter and a JSON converter. In fact, it just uses the defaults for all three. So, where is our starting point? Our starting point will be inside the app views. So, let's create a view. Now, my preference is to use the Django REST framework and its API view. So let me quickly install Django REST framework. I have forgotten how they name it. Let me look inside here. It's, it's all one word. So let me pip install Django REST framework. Okay. Then Next, you are supposed to create a view that is an API view. So let me quickly do that. Class demo view, which is an API view. And I'm going to import API view from REST framework. Excellent. So Django REST framework, for those of us who have used Django before, and specifically the REST framework, it allows you to override certain methods that correspond to HTTP verbs. So the method that I prefer, not I prefer per se, but Nalo's USSD gateway makes a post request. So we are also supposed to override the post. So let's override post over here. Let's override post. Now, we have an entry point in our Django application. Next thing, we need an entry point into our USSD framework. If you remember from yesterday, I said that the router is what determines where um, it determines which user response handler gets called, and then the user response handler determines which node gets shown. So we are going to start with, I mentioned the base lookup table router yesterday, and I'm going to override it over here, or I'm going to extend it over here. Things are looking good so far. Now, what this does, let's look quickly at the base lookup table, is that it is expecting this table, which is a dictionary, to contain key value pairs. Those key value pairs will be a string as a key, and then the value will be a user response handler. Okay, so let me quickly go in here and then state that table is equal to this. One moment. We have not yet defined our first user response handler. So I can't actually put it inside here. So let me go to the folder and then create a new Python package and name it menus. Okay. So looking at this, our first user response handler is the one that will show us the welcome to Bronya Cats. Okay. So let me just create one that I'll call root handler. Okay. So class root handler is of the type user response handler, and import. For every user response handler that you override, you are actually supposed to override a method, or for every user response handler that you extend, you are supposed to override the method get node. So let me come here. It is prompting me to implement the abstract method get node. Okay. So there's a method that it has, the framework will give you the application context, and based on the application context, you are supposed to return a node. So let's import and import. Okay. So which node are we going to return now? Well, for the root, let's just return the welcome node. So welcome node class welcome node, and it's of the type node. I'm going to import this, and node expects you to override a method or to implement a method called create menu. That create menu method also gives you access to the application context. It also gives you access to the application context in order for you to know what is in your application at that particular time, so that you can present the user with correct information. So let's go one step back to, in fact, let's stay here right now. The create menu returns a tuple. The tuple contains two things. The first is a node response, and the second is a string. A node response is a special data structure consisting of message, which is a string, options, which is a list of menu options, and then it has this require response optional field, which is a boolean, and it is initialized to false. Require response is a little bit special in the sense that if you present your user with options, haircut, rasta, mpese, and check appointment, then obviously you want the user to respond. It is so obvious that you want the user to respond. But what if there is a case where you say, what is your name? Or please enter name. That can be a terminal node, because it is just information you are displaying. You are not actually giving them menu options. Okay. So if you put out just a message, and then your options are empty, or you don't give it any options, then you need a require response to force the USSD to accept an input from the user. Otherwise, it will just assume that you have reached the end of your application. So there's a certain logic somewhere in the framework that does that. So once again, a node response is a message you send. In this case, a message will be, welcome to Bronya Cats. What do you want to do? It is the options as to what you want the person, the number the person can enter and what it corresponds to. So the options will be 1, haircut, 2, rasta, 3, person, 4, check appointment. So let's do that over here. We are going to return a node response and a string. We'll come to the string later. The node response will have message is equal to welcome to Bronya Cats. What's next? What do you want to do? Okay. Then we have options. So the options is an array, or is a list of menu options. Let me import menu option. And menu option takes two parameters. The first is a number, so number 1, and the second is the corresponding text for that number. So haircut, rasta in %. Number 2, number 3, number 4. Rasta, %, and the last one is what? Check appointment. Okay. So welcome to Bonya Cars. What do you want to do is a message. The options are 1, haircut, 2, rasta, 3, M-Pesa, 4, check appointment. This is the data structure for a node response. This is a data structure for a node response. Then the last thing over here is a string. This specific string over here will be stored in the application context as the next route. It will be stored in the application context as the next route. So let's go to route handler first and indicate that when someone requests a node from the route handler, it should just return the welcome node. Oopsie. So just return a welcome node. Okay. Then let's go to the view and indicate that the empty route, which is the starting point of the application, should correspond to a lambda that gives us a route handler. I'm going to give a quick explanation as to why I prefer using a lambda that gives a route handler. You could do this directly. So this empty route, you take a route handler object, and that is what you use to handle the initial call. Okay. However, when you do this, when table is initialized, we also initialize a route handler, which I feel is unnecessary. So I put the route handler inside the lambda, and when what do you call it? When table is initialized, we just know there's a function over here, and that function will be called at the time when we evaluate and arrive at an empty YY, an empty route. So what we have done so far, we've actually set up the lookup table for our Bronya Cat demo. And so we can come in here and let me dab a little and then say that we have an app called Nalo application. So app equals Nalo application. Nalo application is not expecting any parameters. But then when you run Nalo application, it gives you a response. So our response is equal to app.run. There's run and there's run with pagination. Okay. There's run and there's run with pagination. And the main difference is run with pagination allows you to set the next key and the previous key. It is always preferred to run with pagination because you never know. Some dynamic screens will give you a very large menu, in which case the pagination is necessary. So pagination defaults next key to the pound sign hash, and then the previous key to 0. So whenever you run with pagination, hash as an input will cause the application to try and go to the next page, and then 0 as an input to cause the application to try and go to the previous page. Now, when you do run or run with pagination, it is expecting two very important params, request and router. The request is just the incoming Django request. So request goes here. And then the router is a router that you have specified. In this case, our demo view, since it is a standing router, it is a router by itself. And that's it. We have a response from the application by just doing this. And finally, we can return response, which is a Django REST API thing. And the object or the data is just response. Take note that this response is a JSON formatted response, or it's actually a dict, but it's a JSON formatted dict. And just like that, we actually have our welcome node set up. And I'm going to quickly go through what we have done. First, we made a view inside the views um, file. We called it demo view, and then we extended Django REST API's API view. So we can override the post method and do stuff in it. The stuff we are doing in it is that we are initializing a Nalo application, and we are running that Nalo application with pagination. Run with pagination takes two required parameters. The first is the incoming request, and the second is a router. So since we need a router, we just conveniently um, put this. We made our demo view extend the base lookup table router. Alternatively, you can put your router in a separate file in order to keep things neat and tidy. I am not neat and tidy today. In the, what do you call it? In the Smart Cards application, I put the routing table alone inside a separate file, and then I just referenced it. In the view. That way, all the imports will not clutter my view. And with that, we have our starting point. Now, long-time Django users know that there's one last thing required. We have to actually go into the Django urls.py and then indicate a path for the view that we just made. So this view is which view is it? Demo view. It's inside demo app menus. So demo.app.menus. Sorry, demo.app.views dot demo view as view. And then the last thing, let me just include. Let me go and dab. I always forget how include works. One place. Right place. Oh, okay. I just use a path of my own. That's a yeah, that's a cheap shortcut. So let's do demo dot. Why is he underlining this? Um, cannot reference in imported menu, the imported module demo. Django people, what is going on over here? Okay, so everything so far is looking weird. Let me do this.
Yeah, what are
I know
they? You're pointing it to
it's
the it being pointed to the view already. Oh, you're trying to set up a playground. Which one?
yeah, the playground is what I'm setting up.
Okay.
But let me do this thing. I'm going to move these out of here and into here.
Why?
See, my references, the demo dot thing will cause an issue later in the day.
Okay.
So let me just move them up one step. And then move these also up one step. And then delete this directory. Okay, let me go and look at my references. Every reference is looking sweet, nice and beautiful. Okay, so as a Django application, we are supposed to manage .py. We are supposed to manage .py and run migrations. Oopsie. URLs. Here's what I hate now. The import statements always confuse me. Let me look at how the imports were done. Import USSD.views, import framework.views. I'm going to copy, dot views. Hooray. Copy has done well. Excellent. So this is just Django house cleaning. I have created the database SQLite file. What else? Yeah, so everything is set. Let me create super username Morgan, email address empty, password never default. And the super user has been created. Final thing, I'm going to start the application using Django's manage.py run server. And here is the application URL. Now, there is no get path. There's only a post path. So when you go to the root, you are going to get an error. However, you can go to /test which will take us to the playground. However, access to the playground requires you logging in first. So what is happening now? Django try to load these templates in this order. Uh, Sorry, one last thing. In order for Django to load the template, it actually needs to know of the USSD framework. So we need to add it to installed apps. USSD underscore framework. Now Django knows that USSD framework exists, so it can look inside there. And we are ready. Okay. If you remember, the empty URL is what points to our view. So for endpoint, we can actually leave it empty or we can put a slash. Either of them will go to our view. I have set my network. I'm going to put in my phone number and I'm going to start the session. So start session, I hit it. And guess what you see? Welcome to Bronya Cats. So here is the call. The payload is message type true, meaning we are starting a session. MSISDN is this number, network is MTN, no user input, and user ID is for Nalo people. And then the response, let me preview the response. Response is message, welcome to Bronya Cat. What do you want to do? 1, haircut. 2, rasta. 3, person, check appointment. Message type is true. This message type true here means that it is expecting user input. So the session has actually not ended. That's what message type true means. MSISDN, user ID. Those things are required by Nalo. Okay, so we have our first response, or we have our first menu. Let's go to getting to our second menu after the first one. If you remember from our lookup table, we only have one route set. This route is the root, the empty route, and it gives us a route handler. Now, after you've presented the welcome node, the welcome node is expecting a response. So there has to be a response handler for the welcome node as well. I hope that makes sense. There has to be a response handler for the user's input after they see the content of the welcome node. So you can do new Python file, welcome handler, and create a class, welcome handler, which will be a user response handler. So let me import user response handler from the framework. And let me implement the get node method. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, the context has information about whatever has happened in your application. And you can even add additional information to the context. So right now, we have presented the user with this option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, and the user has made an input. So we have come to the handler and we want to show the next node in the flow. Now, if you look at the flow, there are actually two nodes to select from. There's one node if the user inputs 1, 2, or 3. And then there's a different node if the user inputs 4. What is not stated here is that if the person inputs a number apart from 1, 2, 3, or 4, the person has made a wrong input and preferably you should send them back to Bronya Carts or do some other action that the product managers tell you to do. Okay, so um, let's even handle that case as well. Now, first thing first, uh, no, let me not going to use data. Let's see what the user inputted. So context dot get data. Context of get data will give us what the user has inputted into the application. Thank you. It gives us what the user has inputted into the application. So if the user inputted 1, 2, 3, or 4, that will be sitting inside the get data. And now we have it inside data. So now you can do an if data, oopsie, I keep forgetting that I'm in Python. If the data is 1, then we are supposed to return this node. If the data is 2, we are supposed to return this node. If the data is 3, we are supposed to return that node. So basically, let me change this to if 1, 2, 3, Python people, I forget this quickly. Is it if data in this correct, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I was doing that, I saw the Python people screaming at me through the through the multiverse. If it is this, then return the time slot node. Okay. Let's see, wrong place. Then else, if data is 4, then let me just return which one? Appointment node. Finally, if the person inputted something that is none of the above, then we are going to give them an error message. Okay. So probably you can even put your own, we can just return the welcome node again. This bad practice. You need to tell them that they have inputted a wrong, they've made a wrong input. They should do better. Okay, but you can just return the welcome node, telling them to put in 1, 2, 3, or 4. So we need 2 nodes right now. One node for if they made 1, 2, 3 as input, another node for if they made 4 as input. Now, so far, I have been doing the response handler and then the node as 2 separate classes. It gets tiring very quickly. So I'm going to combine them inside one class. Let's go to the time slot menu. So time slot menu and class time slot menu. It is going to extend both node and user response handler. Oopsie. import this and import this as well. So right now we can basically just do both our response handling and our menu creation inside the same class. And that way you don't have to be jumping in between multiple files. So create menu for time slot. In this specific case, I'm going to hard code. If you are doing a project, you are supposed to actually compute. You are actually supposed to look up a database and then find the available time slot. So select an option. That's the message. Then the options are menu option objects. So menu option for option 1, you have Thursday at 9. For option 2, Thursday at noon. And for option 3, we have Friday at 10. Okay. Then what is this? Get node. Get node, we will come back to it later. So there's a time slot node set up over here. And so we can go to the welcome handler and indicate return, don't like typing, time slot menu. Excellent. Then let's have a menu for the appointment node. And appointment menu. Class appointment menu, which is a node and the user response handler. Oh. And override. Okay. So this one will return a node response. Node response is the appointment is set for options. Options are, so you see this tedious work. That's why ChatGPT is going to replace programmers now. New option. What is all this? If I train my AI model read, read, what do you call it? Draw the tile diagrams, it will just do all the way for me. Menu creation for me. Cancel appointment, menu option 2, exit. Okay. Too many P's. Appointment. So let's return appointment menu. Okay. So there is a first response handler that is actually doing some computation in order to determine which of the nodes you are supposed to see next. After someone has been shown the welcome menu, the response for welcome menu is supposed to come to the welcome handler. How do we make sure that the response for welcome menu comes to the welcome handler? We go to the welcome node and then we indicate the key for the handler. So we indicate that look in the lookup table for handler, sorry, for welcome. Let me go to the views and then create a key called welcome. So if it is welcome, then that response should be handled by welcome handler. In which case, root handler will direct us to welcome node. Welcome node will indicate that its response is supposed to be handled by whatever is in the lookup table mapped to welcome, and that's a welcome handler. So that will take us to welcome handler. Then welcome handler will do this computation in order to determine which of the nodes it is supposed to send to. So that explains the string at the end of the create menu response. That string corresponds to something in the routing table. Once again, that string corresponds to something in the routing table. And based on what it corresponds to, that thing is what will handle the response for this node. So this welcome node, its response is handled by whoever is mapped to the welcome string in our routing table. Unfortunately, that one is currently welcome handler. Welcome handler will either show us a time slot menu or an appointment menu. Now, when time slot menu returns its response is actually supposed to be handled by someone, but time slot menu is its own user response handler. So let us create an entry in the lookup table.
We no go gree or
Come again.
we no gree.
You know green.
Yeah, we no
You
gree,
want
we no
sep-
gree.
you want separation of concerns, eh?
At this point, you've exhausted your time slot.
Oh yeah. I forgot that part.
Yesterday, you promised us you will finish before the time slot.
But you people did not join the call till after 15 minutes, so that
Oh, we
happened.
no gree, we no go gree give you.
You people also promised you will be here on time, as we came when it started. Okay, so time slot will be going to time slot menu, and fortunately, time slot menu has a user response handler. So once again, this user response handler will just take the data from the context or get data. And then now that it has the data, it can use it to determine who is the next node in the process. But fortunately for us, in this specific instance, anything that the user inputs always goes to um, the same place. However, if data not in 1, 2, 3, return self. So it will just loop back to the same node. Else, else we are supposed to what? Return this node, which is you have selected Friday at 10 a.m. Let me call it the cost node. Okay. So else we are supposed to go to the cost node, which is the next node in the flow. So far, I believe this is making sense. Is it confusing someone? Am I confusing someone? I think that's a better question. Okay.
We
Looks
know
like
we understand.
looks like this is okay. So right now I want to demonstrate one thing before I I do what? Before I leave you to do the remaining screens. And when did I spoil the text inside this one? Oh,
Hi, man.
yeah.
Yeah, so what time estimates should we give? I believe we have a meeting at 11. This
So
for the backend especially.
yeah. So this one will end at 10:45 latest.
Okay, can make it that. Let's say it's 10:50 or yeah,
Okay, yeah, for questions. But
yeah.
me, I should be done by 10:45.
All right.
Okay. So let's go to the cost node. Okay. Let me quickly do the cost menu. Class cost menu, which is
Yeah,
a
how should
node.
they do the cost menu? Where your test they
Which of the tests, the unit or the integration?
And the unit test
That one is for you to do and for me to inspect. Oh,
You web code no somebody make you web the unit test give you.
exactly.
I see.
Okay. So let's go to cost menu and let me demo something in quickly. At this point in time, the person inputted either one, sorry, not at this point in time. At this point in time, the person inputted either haircut, raster, or in person. So we are supposed to display the cost that corresponds to this the person selection. Haircut does not cost the same as raster, does not cost the same as in person. Okay. So how does this node over here get to know what this person selected over here? The answer, as you should know, is application context. Now, at the response handler for the welcome, we are going to put the person's response into the context. So we are going to do context dot update. This update method takes a key and value, and the key will be selected style or just style, and then the value will be the data that the user inputted. Now we have the person's style inside our context. Then we can come to our cost menu and then fetch selected style from the context. So context dot retrieve, and the key is what selected style. Now that we have the selected style, we can quickly go to style cost. Let's see. Let me move this out. For style one, it cost 50. For style 2, which is raster, it costs 150. And for style 3, which is in pese, it costs 70. The barber that I use, they are math. They are taking 200 and things for we putting highlights in people's hair. Yes, charging people.
The
So
geometry
cost,
way they go do for you before then take chalk and draw the distance. They say big joke.
well, that's why me, I'm not going to highlight my hair just yet. Me and Koku Bro, we are not highlighting our hair yet.
I wanted to ask you some say why you know add Sakura to the list now. That's
Sakura,
discrimination.
Sakura is not a style, it's an absence of hair.
Oh yeah, well, that's discrimination. You do know that, right?
Oh, it's not discrimination, yeah.
They're being a hair racist.
Okay, so my 10:45 has ended, but what I wanted to demonstrate, I believe you have gotten it. In the welcome handler, we took the person selection and we placed it inside the context. Then at the course menu, we just fetched it, we retrieved it from the context, and then we used it to get our course. So we can actually return um, node response message is equal to you have selected Friday at 10 a.m. In fact, this one too, you can put the selection into the context and then fetch it from the context as well. But let me just hard code it. You have selected Friday at 10 a.m. Make payment, confirm your appointment. Cost is GHS cost. And what are the options over there? Number one, proceed. Proceed did not end the previous slide. Options, menu option one, proceed. And two, cancel. And this one too is expecting a response handler.
Yeah, two no, you know type two.
Sure. Okay. So I believe the infrastructure so far has been set up. Let me make sure that there is so starting from the root handler, it goes welcome node. Welcome node expects us to find welcome. So do we have welcome? We have welcome. Welcome goes to the welcome handler, and welcome handler takes us to time slot menu. Time slot menu expects a time slot handler. Let's see. Is there a time slot? There's a time slot handler. That handler will give us return cost menu. To take us to cost menu, and cost menu will route us back to the root. But then ideally, they should also go to reference itself using the lookup table as the pivot. So let's see if we get the correct cost from our application. So let's go to the playground and start afresh. Submit. Which do I want? I want raster. Raster is 150. Select an option Thursday at 9, Thursday at noon, Friday at 10. If you remember, I hard coded the the time slot. So regardless of what I select, I'll still get Friday at 10. So one, then it says you have selected Friday at 10. The cost is correct. And with that, we have come to the end of today's training session. You have homework. The homework is this. So I am going to make what I have done available to you as a repo, and you are supposed to go in, correct my mistakes, and then finish the application. So I did not save this one in the context in order to retrieve it here. So you are supposed to put this in the context and then display the correct time of day at this screen. And you are supposed to proceed to the next pages, all of them. So this one has not been done, this has not been done, this has not been done, this has not been done. Okay, I'm going to stop over here for questions. Anyone?
Yeah, I have a question for Solomon. Solomon.
Yeah.
Solo. Solo. What's Solo pass me? Yes. Solo need to respond. Please proceed.
All right. So yes, I have actually come to the end. I am going to git commit all of this and then create a repo and put them inside. So I'll be sharing the repo with PK, and PK will share with everyone else. Your homework is to complete this USSD menu and present it to Anthony for inspection.
Nah, I was going to say, as you they say, make them go to who will go inspect them? Submit
Maybe
it to
you
all
then.
kind of inspection.
Yeah, thank you all for
Oh,
coming
hello,
to
Morgan. I've
today's.
raised my hands, but
Yes,
you didn't call me.
I'm not in
I
the
your
Zoom.
hands they paying you already. I was going
Oh,
to call you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We'll come back.
Okay. So can I ask?
Or you can
Oh,
ask.
yes,
I'm just kidding.
proceed.
all right. Okay. Quickly, I think this is a well-written something. Is it for Nalo or it's open to the public? That is one. And secondly, okay, me personally, I won't say that just by watching your demo, I understand your framework end to end. But I want to know, apart from the code, do you have any documentation to reference, or we just have to use the code as the reference point to learn it? That's all. Thank you.
The person
You're welcome.
you know get unit test. You want documentation. This guy.
Exactly. There is unit test for the framework.
Yeah, I'm talking about the
The-
framework, not this demo.
so the framework has unit tests for all of its components. Okay. However,
Okay.
there isn't documentation for the framework itself. There's only tests and the code. But the code is extremely wait, highly
Extremely
commented.
difficult to understand.
So incoming data from the USSD provider, options for user to select from, response from node processing data. So if you read through the code, you should be able to, get around. There are comments for everything.
I don't understand.
Mm. So read through the code. Why?
Morgan, that was the first question too.
The first question, he was not paying attention yesterday. So that one comes in. I said it is very tightly coupled with Nalo's USSD gateway. Although you can override this application class. In fact, it was written using solid principles. So basically, anything can be overridden. Okay, anything. You can override the output JSON converter. Right now, the JSON converter, it converts to Nalo format. There's Nalo's JSON format when we are returning it. So you can override it and then put your own JSON converter if you are using an external third party um, gateway, USSD gateway. The same thing for the input um, the input
Okay, we get it. We get it. Don't worry.
deserialization.
We
So
get it.
everything can be overridden. Okay, this one is looking at Nalo's input. So it is currently very tightly coupled with Nalo, but you can override anywhere that there's Nalo coupling to use externally. Makes sense?
We don't understand, but then we watch the video again.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So everyone understands their homework. Please go home and go and do work.
Morgan,
Yes, Alex.
my question
Mm-hmm.
now, if a session is prematurely terminated, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage? How do you do your cleanup?
So this is a Django session. Django sessions are, I forget whether they are time based or something, but then Django cleans up after itself.
Mm.
Okay, is the same session that handles the admin page. So if your Django setup, it locks you out of Django admin after a period of time, it will also clear your session after that same period of time. So it's how your Django is set up that indicates how long the person is out for.
First question.
I can
Now
see
we are
there are
getting
more
to the first
questions.
question now.
Anthony, we need to settle on something now because I know you guys have your meeting right outside here. Do we postpone the questions to another time or we conclude and then forward the questions to Morgan, our written answers?
Oh, they can finish up. I think I'll be the one going. So
Okay, all right. So, Alex, you can proceed.
Next question
Mm-hmm.
in your flow, in your data analogy, what do you call it? Your tree analogy, right? How do you handle the next and the previous node when the request comes in?
When you talk about next and previous, are you talking about the pagination style of thing, or
No.
you're
Like
talking about
what
the
you are saying
flow?
right now. The node. I'm talking about the node, not the edges. As you are using the tree analogy. So how do you, let's say a request comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that the user input is just a number, right? So how do you get to know that, oh, this one you go to this particular node as you are traversing over the tree? Like how do you able to switch in between so that you're able to get the correct node?
Okay. So a request comes in. First thing we do is to check the router. So the router is one of the most important components to this application. Okay. Now, what the router will do is, in the case of the base um, lookup table router, it will check whether Nalo's message type is true. This message
Mm.
type true. It will check whether it's true. If it is true, it means that we are starting a fresh. It means we are starting a
Session.
fresh session. Okay, let me move everything up. If it is a fresh session we are starting, let me make this bigger. How do we make this thing bigger? If you are starting a fresh session, then Then look for the empty string in the lookup table. Yes. Look for empty string in the lookup table. Otherwise, it means that we have, if there is not a fresh session, then it means that we have already hit a node. So let's look, for instance, at our welcome node. It means that we have already hit a node before, and that node has indicated who the next handler should be. Okay, if it is a fresh session, then we are going to look for the empty string in the lookup table. But then, if it is a continuing session, then someone has already put a next node in the context. So check context for next route. Okay, then look for route in the lookup table. So far,
Yeah.
making
Can we
sense.
go back to the code with this particular this particular one? Can we go back to the code so that we do a walkthrough?
Okay,
So ongoing session.
ongoing session. We have previously shown the welcome node. It showed the
Yep.
user, welcome to Bronya Cast. What do you want to do? And then ask him, these are the options you can select from. Then it told the framework. So this thing over here is a message to the framework. This
Okay.
string at the end is a message to the
Yeah.
framework that after you present this response to the user, when the user enters a response to this, look in the lookup table for welcome. Now, our lookup table is inside the view right now. Right now, it's inside the view. So the table says there's an entry for welcome. And so whatever the person responded with, go to this lambda and run it. Okay. So it will take us to the welcome handler. And the welcome handler actually has a method called get node, which will be called. And so inside the get node, first thing we do is we get the user's response from the context. That's context or get data. And then based on that user's response, we indicate if the data is 1, 2, or 3, then go to the time slot node. If the data is 4, then go to the appointment node. If the person inputted something wrong, just loop them back to the welcome node. Okay, so I was saying that this lookup table is the pivot that ensures that it is the pivot between node and handler. So a node will tell the framework that this is the next place where we can find a handler. Then the lookup table will have that specific key in it, and that key corresponds to a particular handler. So the lookup table is sitting in between the node and the handler as the pivot. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. All right.
Excellent. So, any more questions?
I think I have more.
Please go ahead.
This your node there. Don't you think will be far easier if you actually use a date, right, to represent the node. You know, the node has the menus. Let me say the nodes are actually the menus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can use one big JSON file or one date, then you structure everything inside. Then you just come and pick from the, I don't know, or maybe that would be my design though. So I will just come and pick from the date file per whatever the user gives you.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know. Is it my person though?
a million years ago, when COVID hit,
Mm.
I believe we were still using PHP at that point.
Mm.
I was in Takrady. I ran away from Accra and all your COVID. And I built the first version of my USSD framework in PHP. And what I did was that I had an associative array. You remember?
Mm-hmm.
One
Yep.
large associative array with all the linkings in it. And
Okay.
it worked. That's the first thing. It
Mm.
worked. But the thing was, everything was inside one single file. And the file grew larger and
Mm.
larger as the product team kept adding more things to it. So I was like, no, let me just separate it into classes. Then I used classes instead and made separate
Mm.
files for each class. So yes, I've explored that way. It works. It works.
Mm.
But
Okay.
for
Yeah.
readability and followability, there's what I landed on finally.
Okay. Okay. I think for now, are we going to meet again or today's the last?
Well, today is the last. You have homework, and when you finish the homework, yourself and what's his name, and Anthony Mark.
Hey, Mark, we are the one going to mark. Anthony, are you ready to mark? You're the one who's giving you the homework, so you're
Me,
supposed to mark. Eh? Okay, all right. So that's all from my end. Thank you very much. Yeah.
you're welcome. Okay, I believe now that the grandpapas are bath, all the water is finished. So we are closing now. Thank you all for attending today's session. And as I mentioned earlier, the Gate repo will be made available to you later in the day. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Morgan. It's been a very compact and dense training. But then, yes, we get to work. We'll make sure the homework is done and we'll move on from there. So thank you once again. All right, so guys, like I did yesterday, I would get the link to the recording and then I would share. And I believe that's about it. So until then, enjoy your day. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.